Hey everybody, welcome to KimmelsIrishPub.com. So for this episode, I'd like to do a little talking about fantasy football. We're getting closer to fantasy football drafts and there's a lot of discussions going on. If you're not aware, I am basically in 3 keeper leagues. Occasionally we'll join a redraft league, but tonight's episode is more about keeper leagues, and what I want to explore is talking about trades. So a lot of times when you watch Fantasy Football Now or any other sites, they're going to ask you, should I trade this player for that player? And they're going to evaluate the talent of each player and say who's a better player and whether you should trade for that person or not. Well, here I'm going to do it a little bit different and actually set up real live scenarios, because I believe that you can't just look player for player, you have to look at the situation of the entire team. So scenario 1, we'll go with this one. In my one league, you name 3 to 4 keepers. If you name 4 keepers, you lose your first round pick. If you name 3, you keep your first round pick. Okay? So Team A currently only has 2 keepers, Lamar Miller and Odell Beckham Jr. Traded their other keeper for the first pick in the draft. So they have the number 1 pick of the draft and those 2 keepers. Team B has Landry, Jarvis Landry, Ben Roethlisberger, and Melvin Gordon. So they're the way the 2 teams are set up. Now, again, the first team has a first pick in the draft and also has 2 second-round draft picks. The first pick in the second round and the 5th pick. So Team A offered Team B the second round pick number 1 and second round pick number 5 for Melvin Gordon. And that trade happened. So I want to know what your thoughts are on that trade. For me, on paper, when you just look at that trade, giving up 2 second round picks for Melvin Gordon, I think is a great opportunity for Team A. They received a stud running back that you will not be able to get with either one of those 2 picks. You won't even be able to get that caliber of a running back in the first round of a keeper league draft. Now, there are some rookies that we don't know what's going to happen with them. They could turn out to be as good. But right now, you know what Melvin Gordon did in 2016. I think he's going to continue to do that with that offense. So on paper, when I look at that trade, I say to myself, wow, Team A made out. He gave away 2 draft picks in a keeper league for one of the top 5, in my opinion, running backs in 2017. Right? But then you look at it a little bit deeper, and this is why this is important. Team A, as I mentioned, already has Lamar Miller and Odell Beckham Jr. as its 2 keepers and a number 1 draft pick. Now, if you're familiar with keeper leagues, the best thing to look for is you're going to look at Leonard Fournette as your number 1 pick, I think. No matter who gets thrown back, unless somebody makes a terrible mistake and lets somebody really good go back. But we already know who's in the draft pool, and he is probably the number 1 pick. The number 1 receiver would be T.Y. Hilton. So who do you draft? Do you again, it's a keeper league, so do you take the top receiver in T.Y. Hilton, which will round out Team A's team better, or you're going to take Fournette? And I think that's what he's going to take. So now he's got Lamar Miller, Fournette, and he just traded for Melvin Gordon, and he can only start 2 running backs. So, again, on paper, he looks like he got a steal, but when you look at the team as a whole, I think he made a mistake in that scenario. But the draft hasn't happened yet. We're not sure who he's going to draft, but I wanted to share that with you. Let me know what you think. Do you think he made a mistake, or do you think the trade was worth it? And then I'll get into scenario number 2. But first, I wanted to share with you what I'm drinking. Stone Hop Revolver IPA. So as you know, the 3rd leg of this show, fantasy football, movies and television, and anything beer related. So this is a pretty neat Stone. Basically, they rotate single hop series, so they only do 1 hop in the entire beer, and this one is Mandriana. Let me spell it for you. M-A-N-D-A-R-I-N-A, Bavara. So this is the type of hop that is being used in this Stone, and it's always fun because they'll rotate it, and you can try every other hop. This one, it is 7.7% alcohol. It's good. Very good. Anyway, alright, back to scenario number 2. This involves me and in a different league. We have yet to name keepers in this league, so we have our full rosters. Slightly different scenario, you keep 5 or 4. Again, if you keep 5, you lose your first round draft pick. I have the number 1 pick in the draft. Right now, my 4 keepers are going to be Todd Gurley, Des Bryant, Keenan Allen, and Ty Montgomery. I'm also toying with the idea of Alshon Jeffrey instead of Ty Montgomery, but I think I'll keep Ty Montgomery as it is today with the number 1 pick. I am again looking at Fournette to pair up. I'll have 2 running backs and then 2 receivers. I actually have 3 running backs, and in this league you have an alternate position where you can start either an extra running back, an extra receiver, or an extra tight end. So 2 running backs, 3 receivers, 1 tight end, and then 1 alternate or extra player in there that you could flex position. 1 extra flex position, running back, receiver, or tight end. And Fournette, then I'd have 3 running backs and 2 receivers. So that's my plan there. Another owner of mine who has a stacked team as well. He has Rodgers, Bell. Anyway, but he has Rodgers. That's the important part. He's keeping 5 players. And he has reached out to me and offered me Aaron Rodgers. I offered him a 3rd round pick because in the 2nd round I have the number 1 pick, and in the 1st round, but I offered him a 3rd round pick and he declined it. Which, again, looking at it, you would say, wow, a 3rd round pick for Aaron Rodgers. Getting Aaron Rodgers is a good deal because you're never going to get Aaron Rodgers with that 3rd round. He wants my 2nd round pick. Again, if you look at it, the person that I'm going to draft at the 2nd round pick is not going to be the caliber of Aaron Rodgers. But I turned it down. I still offered the 3rd, but I turned down the 2nd rounder, and here's why. Again, when you look at the whole picture, if you just compare 2nd round pick to Aaron Rodgers wins every time. But when you look at the whole picture and you think, okay, now if I take Aaron Rodgers, one of those 4 guys that I mentioned before I cannot keep and hold on to my number 1 draft pick. So I would have to throw Ty Montgomery back in. So essentially, I'm trading the number 2 pick, the 2nd round pick, and Ty Montgomery for Aaron Rodgers. Again, if you think about it a little bit heavier, that's not that bad of a trade either. But I also think the gap between Aaron Rodgers and the rest of the quarterbacks out there. I mean, you got Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, top 3, no doubt. It's great to have them. But then after that, you're talking any one of these quarterbacks can have a decent year and make up the point gap between who you have and Aaron Rodgers. So you get a Kirk Cousins and he does what he did last year, Matt Ryan, Cam Newton, any of these types of quarterbacks. I think you have anywhere from 15 to 16 quarterbacks that have a very short gap in between each other. So when you're really trading Ty Montgomery and the 2nd round pick overall for Aaron Rodgers, you're trading both of those things to make up the gap between the quarterback that you would have taken, Matt Ryan, and Aaron Rodgers, and that's all you're getting is that gap. So again, that's why I turned down that trade. When you look at it on the surface, the 2nd round pick versus Aaron Rodgers is going to be better than the guy I get there, but you have to look at the whole picture. You can't just compare apples to apples because it's not. So hopefully, you see the logic behind all of this, and this has helped anybody. And if you have any trade questions, I'd welcome them in the comments. But don't just player for player. Tell me your scenario, or I'll interact with you and ask you who else is on your roster, who else is on that other roster, because that's what you have to look at. What's the whole picture? Don't just compare the 2 items against each other and make a decision. All right, that's it for this episode of KimmelsIrishPub.com. Have a good night.